At the end of 2015, I said, this is going to work. And it was after I received the recognition at our end of year awards ceremony. And, different seasoned agents had come up and just kind of congratulated me just because it was like you just started. In this market, it doesn't happen often where you will start, not be on a team, but be able to be successful as well. And my main goal getting started was to make sure that people knew it wasn't just a fad. It wasn't a period for me where it's like, oh, hey, it sounds nice to be an agent. It was truly a career. So I had to create like a foundation where people were comfortable coming to me with their referrals. At the end of 2015, so that Realtor Honor Society that I mentioned, you have to have at least 2 million sold. At the end of that year, I had 6 million sold.
Wow.
So this marketplace, so you think of Georgia and any place else, they probably have huge numbers. For this marketplace, that's huge. And in 1 year, and that was my first full year.
You are listening to the Real Estate Proverbs Podcast with host Kevin Jefferson. This is the #1 podcast for African American real estate professionals who are doing extraordinary things. It's time to tune in. And now, your host, the People's Lender, Kevin Jefferson.
Welcome to the Real Estate Proverbs Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Jefferson, and today our guest is Miss Japreshia Clark. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure. Thanks for taking my invite.
Thank you for having me on.
No problem. Looking forward to it. I've heard a lot of great things about you and your business, and definitely want to dive into how you got there and where you're looking to go.
Absolutely. I'm excited to share.
Awesome. Japreshia, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are.
So I would reference, I guess, myself as just like a hometown girl, just looking to share whatever knowledge, whatever information I come across. I have been in the financial industry for 26 years now. I actually started off in banking and held several positions there over 16 years. I've been a regional manager, auditor, business banker. At the time I left the bank, I was actually a mortgage lender. So when I came into the world of real estate, I had that under my belt, which was like arsenal that no one else had in my marketplace. And so for the last 7 years, I believe, I have been a real estate agent, just going around sharing whatever information I can. In my free time, I'm actually spending time helping others to get motivated about entrepreneurship, owning something of your own, marketing, how to do better, what you can do better. And it's all trial and error for me. Just don't make the same mistakes that I made because no one helped me.
Gotcha. I understand that. So I guess let's dive into what made you switch from being in the financial world to actually being a realtor.
I think what made me switch, aside from having to call the police to get clients to leave my office because of overdraft fees, I think it was time for me to have a more of a consistent happiness about what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. And certainly I had a career in the banking world, but I had truly exhausted everything that I could in the market where I was living. I wasn't ready to transition to another state for a promotion. I didn't have the hours that I could dedicate to doing some of the other roles because my children were still in school. So I took a leap and said, you know what, let me figure out what I want to do next. And people had asked me about doing real estate before just coming in the bank, just from having the sales background. But I was afraid of the paycheck part of it, the commissions. And no, that's not for me. But I said to myself, I want something where I know someone's going to be happy from start to finish. And the end part of real estate is what truly keeps me coming back every day. So I just actually in the parking lot on my lunch break after 16 years of banking said, you know what, I'm going to go be a realtor. And that's what I did. And so I've been doing it ever since. I was actually talking to one of my counterparts the other day, and she said, does this ever make you just want to go be a greeter at Walmart? And like, I have those days sometimes, but then it's the feeling of when somebody actually gets what they want. in a home. They create a home, and it's like I can't let it go. Like I fiend for that.
Right. So it's like with me, I feel like it's a love-hate relationship.
Yes. The last 18 months has been a love-hate relationship when COVID started, when the pandemic started. I don't know about you, but I wasn't able to take a nap. Like people around me was like, oh, I'm just, they're slumbering, they're taking naps, they're cleaning their house, they're doing all these things. I'm sure you were like I was, constantly on the go, trying to keep up with the volume that was placed on us.
Yeah, it was different. And I'm glad you said that, because I was trying to figure out how people were living their best life. I mean, I literally remember getting maybe 2 hours of sleep, right? I'm up working on files. Closings are coming, borrowers are putting in applications, submitting documents right away, and it's an
They had
abundance of
time.
leads, right? And I'm literally up till maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, listening to D Nice and Club Quarantine while I work. So, and then
Yes.
getting up at 6 something to prepare my sons who were doing homeschooling from here. So I was just trying to figure out, like, where are you getting the free time? Now, granted, we didn't have to go anywhere, but it was a high speed, fast paced time.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah. So at that point, I had to put a boundary on what my time was like. So that's when I implemented no Sundays at all. Like I would do some Sundays, but even though we weren't going anywhere, no Sundays at all, because you need a mental break. Not only is it high speed, high pace in a normal market because of things instantly and at times we have to meet, add on business that's doubling on top of homeschooling, which is something that's different. I mean, with a 6 and a 10-year-old.
Wow.
And my wife works outside of the house, so it's me. And it's just high pace, high speed.
Yes.
And it was starting to become a lot. It was becoming a lot. I enjoyed helping the people. I enjoyed seeing, I mean, let's be honest, making the money. But at the same time, like April, I burnt out. April of this year, I burnt out. And
I believe I burnt out several times and just was like, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. So, I mean, it's the nature of the beast. I love every moment of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was some, you just like, and you get that clear to close, and you like,
Yes.
like, let's get it. Who's
Yes.
next? Who's next?
The famous 3 words.
Yep, clear to close.
Yep.
Clear to close. Cool. So let's talk about you. So 2014 was your first year?
Yep.
Okay. Right before we start to see the increase in value.
Yeah.
I would say, because around that time, and this is just from my perspective, so you can tell me something different. Around that time, we had shifted from the REO properties coming out in abundance to seeing inventory that most people don't know was being put on the market by hedge funds.
Yeah.
Who purchased a lot of REO properties. So then, in my opinion, they helped save us in terms of the market increasing. So 2015, I was still a realtor in Delaware.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was still a realtor in Delaware. And before I moved, matter of fact, while I was here, I had a few listings from hedge funds that they were renovating and putting on the market so that we could sell. So what was your first year in real estate like compared to what you thought it would be?
I think the first year for me, it was a good year. It was a good year. I came in halfway. So it was July, I got licensed in 2014. And by the end of that year, once you get licensed, it's like a month of getting stuff together. When I actually started, I started on a team. I came in with someone saying, "Hey, I want you to be on my team." I had no concept of what a team looked like. I really didn't understand what the role would be. I really didn't understand, what the commission split and all of that fun stuff looked like. So for me, I came into it just thinking, okay, I've lived in this community forever. I've worked in the community forever. It should be a piece of cake, piece of pie. My circle of business is going to give me a lot. By the end of the year 2014, I believe I probably had maybe 4 or 5 transactions. But by the end of the year, I had already restructured a team is not going to work for me. And it wasn't going to work for me because I already had that sales background embedded in me. And, when you work for a company, I work for Wells Fargo. And so they're about their business. There's not a day, a minute, a second that goes by. You're not on the phone calling, beating the street, figuring out how you're going to create business. So by the end of the year 2014, I had already said, hey, the team thing's not going to work for me because it was really sitting and waiting for calls to come and be a buyer agent. The transactions that I had in that year, and for this market, do understand, where some people may say, oh, in 4 or 5 months, I can get 20 transactions. It's a very rural market here in a sense. We're about 45 minutes, maybe an hour south of DC, and we're probably 45 minutes north of Charlottesville. And so I cover everything in those boundaries. So as a new agent, it literally just took me some time of like listening, thinking, okay, a team is really designed for someone who may not have a book of business, may not have the means to kind of cover the cost for some of the things associated with being a realtor, or just trying to understand the navigating process to being a realtor. Going into 2015 is really when I got started and was able to kind of create a basis as to I'm a realtor and I'm here to stay. Because I'm sure a lot of people will call you and say, hey, can you talk to me about becoming a realtor? No shade to anyone that's ever called me at all, because I get the calls often, but the first thing that I tell them is forget everything you've ever seen on HGTV. And forget asking me if it's all about making fast money, because it's truly about time, patience, and building relationships. That's how you stay consistent and stay relevant. And my lender partner that I work with in the area, we talk a lot about the spurts. Even right now with the pandemic, like anybody could become a realtor right now. You were going to get business because good agents were trying to keep up. Like you said, you were like burnt out. So, a buyer could get into the market, call an agent, it could be a new agent. As long as they can get you in the house, they were good. But my lender partner and I talk about who's going to be here after the market gets back in place. And so 2015, I was able to build foundation. I was named Honor Society agent a couple years in a row after that. And it all came from just using social media platform, using the
Okay.
platform to just really put it out there. And it was, again, trial and error. When I was putting safe stuff out there, not much feedback. When I started to share what my experiences were looking like and where I was selling houses and, who I was working with, business just would roll in. The referrals from family, the referrals from old coworkers. And so I look at them and I look at now, and I truly feel like an established agent.
Okay. So this is 2015, 2016, you said?
2015, was my first full year.
Yeah.
First full year. First full
Okay.
year.
So let's go back a little bit.
hmm
What wasn't working with the team aspect?
What wasn't working for the team aspect for me, and share this with whoever is trying to figure out, is a team for me? Do I create a team? Whatever. I think the most important thing is understanding what your role is going to be on the team. I didn't understand what my role truly was or what my purpose was. I think I understood yes, I get to be an agent. I get to call myself a realtor and I'm going to show houses. I was a buyer's agent. My goal was to wait for someone to give me a referral and then go after it. So for me, coming from a background in an industry like Wells Fargo, sitting and waiting for something to come to you, that doesn't work. Like the clock moves very slow, waiting for someone to call, waiting for the team lead to give you a referral. And a lot of times those referrals were dead end from like internet leads. So, I spent Saturdays or Sunday driving an hour away and it turned into nothing.
Right.
Um, so that's what didn't work for me, waiting for someone else to hand me a referral.
Okay. Gotcha. So that, and that's the thing, like I run into agents who have the opposite issue that you have, right? I think, just from my assessment, they may work out better on a team in the beginning, but it has to be a true team, right?
And I think you got to have that purpose. For this market, I always put that disclaimer at the end, this market. I think it's great if you have someone that's fresh out of water and maybe they have no sales background, but a great personality where people can gravitate to them and they're eager to start from the bottom. So they're willing to, or they understand my job is to wait for referrals. Or if it's the individual that says, I really want to get into this, but I don't have the funds it takes to truly cover all aspects of being a realtor versus a salesperson, because in Virginia, you're considered a salesperson. If you are not a part of association, you're a salesperson. So you can't call yourself a realtor. And those fees can be pretty hefty sometimes. So a team works out if like your team lead covers your costs for the different programs and association fees to keep you involved. I mean, some people go that route, but I just feel like it has to serve better purpose if you're going to be on a team. Even if you're on the listing side of it, let's say you're the listing team lead, you have to truly have like the dedication to truly really create that experience for a seller.
Okay, cool. So 2015 is our first full year as an agent and on your own, to be exact. When did you feel like you hit your stride?
Probably, I'd say the end of 2015.
Okay.
At the end of 2015, I said, this is going to work. And it was after I received the recognition at our end of year award ceremony. And, different seasoned agents had come up and just kind of congratulated me just because it was like you just started. In this market, it doesn't happen often where you will start, not be on a team, but be able to be successful as well. And my main goal getting started was to make sure that people knew it wasn't just a fad. It wasn't a period for me where it's like, oh, hey, it sounds nice to be an agent. It was truly a career. So I had to create like a foundation where people were comfortable coming to me with their referrals.
Right. So what was it that pushed you? So are you originally from where you live at now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So what did you do to get that momentum built? Like, give us an idea of how you got it started on your own.
On my own, participating in tons of local events. It wasn't just to show face and leave in 15 minutes. It was actually being involved, reaching out, asking how I can support you, different community events, staying knowledgeable. So my lender partners, the ones that work with me in my area, know it's about educating me as much as I can educate you about what's going on in the market. So I spent a lot of time with all of my lender partners. And again, I came from a lending background. So that really helped like send my career like fast forward really quickly because I was able to relate to the consumer by breaking the terms down. No shade, but a lender can use lender speak because it's just how you have to talk to your processor, your underwriter. But then when you get with the consumer, they're a little lost with some of the words. So I became known for, like, she'll hold my hand the entire time. Call her, she'll explain it to you. Call her, she works 9 to 11 o'clock at night. So it was things like that that kind of worked in this marketplace. Seeing me at events, taking my time, and just being knowledgeable and sharing the information.
Okay. Do you remember what your numbers were at the end of 2015?
At the end of 2015, so that Realtor Honor Society that I mentioned, you have to have at least 2 million sold. At the end of that year, I had 6 million sold.
Wow.
So this marketplace, so you think of Georgia and any place else, they probably have huge numbers. For this marketplace, that's huge. And in 1 year, and that was my first full year.
I mean, 6 million is good in any market, you know.
There's a lot of trust that was given to me.
Yeah, it's 6 million is good in any market. Just because, you know, the average agent closes 5 deals a year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The last time I checked statistics, average realtor makes like $44,000 a year. So 6 million, you know, that's to be commended, especially in your first full year.
Thank you.
So we've got our momentum going. What did 2016 look like?
It's been very consistent ever since then. It's been very consistent. On average, just to share the numbers, since you just shared on average what a typical agent closes in a year with the quantity, I am typically closing anywhere from 35 to 43 deals a year.
By yourself?
By myself. I don't have a team. Some days I wish I had a team, and that's how I lose my mind, but it's just me.
Do you have an assistant, a transaction coordinator, or anything?
I do not have a dedicated transaction coordinator. I have some assistants, but unfortunately, because you know how busy the market can be, I have not been able to dedicate the time to truly teach them like the process from start to finish. So the assistants that I typically acquire, they're putting out signs, putting out the lock boxes, some of those things where I can use my time a little bit better. They're helping me with, like, courthouse runs, stuff like that. As
God,
far as the transaction itself from start to finish, it's me. Showing the houses, it's me. Listing the houses, it's me.
would you call yourself more of a buyer's agent or a listing agent?
Well, you know what? Before the pandemic hit, I would say I was more of a buyer's agent, just because I spent, it was just a lot more dedicated time to making sure that the purchaser understood the steps from start to finish. That was my niche. But since the pandemic, it's been 50-50. Since the pandemic, I've probably had more listings than I have buyers.
Okay. So in Virginia, what is the inventory like?
It's been the same as everyone else's, every place else. It was struggling. You needed inventory everywhere you looked. It was like as soon as it would hit, it was gone. You're waiting for it. Like a builder couldn't build a house fast enough before there was an offer on it. Now it's trying to, stabilize itself. And so inventory is hitting the market. I just shared something the other day. 31% more listings are planned to hit the market each week this time of the year. So the sweet spot in the US is like September 12th to October, I think it was 7th or 9th. It's like the sweet spot, and it lists like the top 50 cities and when the best time to purchase is, as well as the best time to list. So, but it stated that 31% more listings are going to be hitting the market during that sweet spot time. And where I cover, the territory that I cover, yes, you're seeing stuff hit the market.
I know here, I'm starting to see more open houses. During the Wild West of last year.
Yeah.
I knew agents who said they couldn't even get the sign in the yard.
Right. And open houses here really don't do that much. I joke a lot of times, but I'll tell the seller, the only people that are going to show up are your nosy neighbors. They've been dying to see what the inside of your house looks like. They want to be able to go talk about it at like whatever next meeting they have, it just it doesn't do a lot. I think I've only ever, well, in fact, I know I've only ever produced one purchaser from a open house, and it was only because their agent wasn't available that particular Sunday. So they said, "Hey, go." They love the house and sent an offer, but they just don't do well here.
Gotcha. Not sure. I'm not saying not sure. I think the purpose of an open house is to get buyers, right? For the person who is setting the open house. I've never sold a house from an open house. And I think it's a great opportunity for someone who is just getting into the business to have the ability to gain some buyers, because everyone who comes in isn't being represented. But it also depends on where you're at, right?
Right.
If you're out in the middle of nowhere, I'm pretty sure no one's coming.
Yeah, unless you're in New York or LA and you can have an open house the way they do, they pretty much have a party. They just don't do well.
They don't.
I think they're great, if, like you said, if you were a new agent, it gets you comfortable with having conversation with anyone that is unrepresented. It gets you comfortable with the feel of like how to show a house. And it gets you comfortable with like just some Q&A from visitors that'll stop by.
Right. Okay. 2020 was record-setting year for most
everybody
I speak to, right? Where is your business in reference to 2020 as it is to 2021? Are you above, below, equal?
I am above and I'm thankful. And right now, my goal is to open up a firm of my own.
Wow.
Just needed to have enough consistency in place, understand, again, pitfalls. I'm all about trial and error. So, and, I'm not opening it because 2020 and 2021 were great. Oh, we made a lot of money. Go do this and then have to worry about what if the market crashed? What are you going to do then? It's always been a goal. I think after the fourth year in the business, just because of the makeup of who I am. And again, the foundation of coming from the banking industry where you're never sitting and waiting for someone to hand you anything. You're working. And so the marketplace where I am, it just needs a facelift. It needs something new, something fresh. And so I've spent the last few years just kind of like shopping around locations outside of the area to figure out, okay, how can you make this work in this rural marketplace? So looking at 2020, going into 2021, it's like, okay, yep, this is the plan. This is what's going to happen. So I've been able to have conversation with different agents that are like, as soon as you're done, I'm there. And for me, the goal is to get back into being able to teach and coach more because I spent a lot of time doing that at the bank. So it's for me to see new agents come into the business and they have no clue. They have no clue what to do. So for a period of time in 2018 to 2020, I would do like rookie coaching for new agents. And it was just teaching them the basics where someone wouldn't hold their hand. Everybody figures as soon as you get licensed, you're supposed to know what you're doing, but you don't. Like you ethically can get in a ton of trouble for saying the wrong thing. Ethically, you can get in a ton of trouble for doing the wrong thing. So it wasn't that I was telling agents what to do because they had a broker, but they would reach out and say, hey, I have a home inspection. What are some things I should be looking for? Or marketing wise, how can I get business started? I've been doing it for 6 months and I have nothing. So it was really just sharing my honest experience of what I had to do in 2014 from that July period to the end of the year. Because I was sitting there waiting for somebody to hand me something. I had to figure out what I was going to do because it wasn't going to work. So that's the goal. That's the game plan at this point.
You mind sharing what your numbers were in 2020?
In 2020, quantity, it was 41. I could be off by a digit or two. Because honestly, I actually don't even track my numbers. I work and work. And then like the following year, it's like, oh, let me go in and see what the numbers were. And it's like, oh wow, I didn't even know it. Because I figure if I'm constantly tracking that, I'm losing sight of what I'm supposed to be doing. That's just me. So as long as I know I'm consistent and I can keep up in my head a little bit, I'm good. Numbers wise, it was over 10.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah.
So doing 10 plus million a year, right?
Mhm.
And having a family and not having necessarily a consistent support team in terms of admins and assistants. How do you make it all work?
So when I started, my children were all still in grade school, if you want to call it grade school. I've been able to excel because my youngest is a freshman in college now. So when individuals reach out to me and they want to know how to do it, I tell them, time is very important. It depends on the scale of what you want to do. Are you looking to just have 4 transactions a year? Are you looking to make this a career? Because time is very important. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm the best at work-life balance because I'm not. I suck at it, but I've always sucked at it, even when I was at the bank. Um, so it's not a shocker that I still suck at work-life balance. It's a little bit easier now because I do have a level of control over my schedule. So I can block out the time. I mean, it just works great that my kids are older now. So I can dedicate more time. And I don't know if you remember me saying I work typically 9 a.m. till about 11 o'clock at night. So that way it kind of conform in this marketplace. There's a lot of blue collar workers. So I don't want people to take time off of work to go look at a house. I'm here when you get off of work at 5 or 6 o'clock, so that way any of that vacation time they have, they can use that when they're moving in. So it just works out that way. Um, I think the best advice I can give someone when it comes to work-life balance is you should probably have a dedicated transaction coordinator and you should definitely set boundaries.
Yeah, that's key.
It's like the quickest way to get to that burnout phase that you had mentioned if you don't set boundaries.
Yeah, it is, while you want to say, and obviously it's the go-to word, I'm grinding and no days off,
But it's part of the DNA. If you want to be a CEO of your entire life, I mean, it's a constant. So I'm not mad at it.
right. I find that when I'm getting ready to take a vacation or break, business picks up.
Yes, all the time. All the
It's
time.
like,
Never fails.
and I don't know, and you tell me I don't know if it's the fact that we know we're going to be off for a certain period of time and then things just sort of come, or is it that's just the way it's designed? Because I've talked to numerous people and they run into the same thing. Like, man, I went from 2 contracts to 5 in a week and I'm leaving tomorrow. So now I got to figure out, like, get the inspection set and set
I
all
think it's the
this
way the
stuff.
moon aligns when you get ready to go on vacation because it's not just our industry, it's anybody. I've heard that from anybody. I don't care what industry it's in. Right before you go on vacation, somebody somebody wants everything. So for me, I look at it like this. If I'm getting ready to be out of the office for a couple of days or something and I'm getting phone calls and you want me, that means that I'm secure and enjoying vacation knowing I'm coming back and I still have business.
Right, right. So does that mean we need to take more breaks?
I wouldn't make it taking breaks. That's not for me.
Oh man. So you said that your numbers for 2021 are
I
they
actually don't know. I don't know. They should be good. I
should be
mean,
good.
yep.
So do you think it's your business increase, do you think it's the market or your marketing?
My marketing, because I feel like it's the marketing because I've been consistent with what I've been doing. And I've not been like the second option for a lot of clients. And I feel like if I'm not the second option, but I'm the first option, you weren't just quickly trying to make something happen. You were trying to make form a relationship. The other reason I say it's the market is because if you're getting referrals, then that means you've made an impression on someone. And so it's consistent because right now, because things are so busy, like you heard me say, anybody could get licensed and sell a house during the pandemic because things were moving so fast. Is when you have like repeat business. So I've had repeat clients like third or fourth time, or I'm working with a family where there's 4 people that have come out of this family and they're here. So I think it's marketing, it's creating the relationship.
Yeah, so I'm always talking to realtors, always interviewing, just to kind of see what the pulse of the market is. And while I was doing well, and there was people that I was talking to that were doing well during last year, 2020, everybody didn't have a great year.
Right.
I spoke to some people who had decent years, but it wasn't better than their previous years. There were some people who, one lady told me she took a break.
Yeah.
And did something else. And I don't know if that was burnout or.
Yeah, I was going to say part of it could have been, sitting here thinking it could have been you asked me about work-life balance. I mean, if you wanted to sell a home in 2020 or 2021, before here things were trying to slow down, you had to be ready to go. Like if you weren't, they'd call the next one. It didn't bother me if someone had have called me and I wasn't able to be available. That just meant you really weren't going to be loyal to me anyway, because if there had ever come a time where I said I could not do something because of a conflict, you were going to look for the next person. So, that's not a client that I want to have. But I think a lot of it had to do with probably burnout for some people and trying to have a work-life balance and still move at a slower pace and trying to enjoy life. You really couldn't do that in 2020.
Right. And I know a couple of agents, with the fear of the unknown, they just stayed away from people.
Wow,
they didn't go into houses. They didn't.
I'm not even gonna lie, I was reckless. And I'm an extrovert, so I could not sit in the house. I could not. I'd be out wherever you needed me to go.
So while I would say I'm an introvert, I have to go. I'm an extrovert when I need to be. So I'm always constantly going, right? When I didn't have to go anywhere, I loved it.
Not me.
I loved it. Like I love not having to go anywhere. I still worked, but I was busy, right? I was still consistently busy. It introduced me to it made me do some things that I implemented into my business, like time blocking more, because I knew my sons had lunch. I had to prepare them lunch. I had to check on them, make sure they were doing schoolwork. So I had to start time blocking specific times where I could talk to clients. My 6-year-old was next to me. I had my desk. He had his desk. I couldn't be on the phone. So I had times blocked out for, talking to clients, and I knew when those appointments were. So I knew when I was working, when I could answer the phone. Now, if it was an emergency and they weren't closing and they had questions, I would walk away. But other than that, those were the specific times that I had. And I still use those times, even though they're back in school, because that taught me something. Like I said, I implemented Sundays off. So we take Sundays off. If one of my partners call me or text me and say, "Hey, Kevin, we're going to put in an offer. Can you tell me if these numbers work?" I'll do it. But in terms of talking to clients or making a bunch of calls, I don't. I leave Sunday for worship and relaxation and family time. Saturdays, I do work. I block out time for it. And that's it. Prior to that, you could call me. I wake up, hey, like, what you need? Hold on, let me get you this.
Right.
So like, it's like, it taught me how to time block. And I'll be honest with you, Japreshia, I lost some relationships because other people didn't respect that. Right.
Right.
And I always say, and this is my motto, if I'm not spending time with my family, somebody else could be.
Yep.
So if it's...
Look, you just gave the work-life balance lesson that needed. What I couldn't give, you just gave it.
It took work though. Like I had, so I tell people all the time, I'm a lender, but my mindset is still of a realtor. Because I've been a lender for 6 years, was a realtor for 14. So I still am in.
Oh, wow. We kind of just.
We switched. Yep.
Yeah.
We flip flop. And I understand the importance of a transaction. So even in this market, I know that we don't have any time to waste, and we're moving at a rapid pace. But at the same time, I'm not going to do any good to anybody if you're stressed out or don't have a clear mind.
Yeah,
don't have a clear mind.
Absolutely.
Yep. And my therapy became podcasting. Granted, I'm still talking about real estate, right?
But still, it's not any pressure. It's like you're basically just venting. That's it.
Yep, that's it. And we have conversations, like it's unscripted, like you and I talked about. And it just allows for me to kind of get a different introspective of the market from someone else's viewpoint. It also allows me to share information with thousands of people on how someone became successful. I've done 40 interviews.
Congratulations.
Right? No one story was the same. And majority of them were realtors, right? I've got investors, but no two stories are the same. And I say that because the purpose of me doing this podcast is to highlight African-American real estate professionals who are doing amazing things across the world. And at first it was across the country, right? Mm-hmm. But I end up getting with a guy who he is an investor. He invests in the United States, but he lives in Barcelona, Spain, and he's African-American.
Nice.
So I'm getting ready to interview a young lady who's originally from the States, but lives in the Dominican and runs a office in the Dominican. So that's why I expanded it to the world. And it just lets people that are listening kind of resonate with, like somebody is going to, listening to your story, somebody is going to be able to say, oh, I can see myself in her, right? I can see myself in him. I have people who I interview and they say, well, my story isn't that great. And I'm like, it is. Like, it's not that great to you. Our story is never going to be great to us because we're looking at something else.
Exactly.
We're looking at the next person, right? And the couple people who did say that, I got texts, emails, and they got calls saying, hey, I listened to that young lady or that guy on your podcast, and I could see myself. I'm going to reach out to him. Thanks for doing what you do. I'm going to, it just gave me that push I needed because I was thinking about getting out of real estate, or I didn't know how to transition. Yes. And that means a lot, and I would talk to the interviewee that I spoke with, and I was like, hey, I got some calls. It's like, yeah, I got some messages. And I was like, I told you, like, your story doesn't sound sexy to you, but to somebody else who's trying to get to where you are, like, it's probably somebody in banking that's going to listen to this and is like, you know what, I'm gonna do what she did. I've been thinking about it. If she can do it, I can do it. And
Yeah.
that's all I want out of this is
Yep.
just to let people know that, you know, there's options. You know, I interviewed a lady. She was in real estate. The market changed in '08, and she was working, and then she was like, I gotta do something different. And she went and became a nurse. But guess what? She came back into real estate and is kicking tail. So
Good for
like,
her.
you just knowing that trend, you know.
Yeah. I think you just got to know when the universe is speaking to you to make the change.
Yeah, you do. So I also like to be genuine, right, about real estate in this market. There may be a point, and there's nothing wrong with it, where you have to transition into something to get you over those hurdles.
And I think that's kind of where I am right now. And that's why I say, you know, the roadmap is leading to your opening up a firm, because you just have these phases you go through, and you have to know and you have to recognize when the next step is calling. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So let's talk about In the Car with Pri. When did you start that?
Pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. I think it was probably maybe a month or two. It was a couple months after the pandemic started.
Is it because you had to find something to do because you're an
Yes.
extrovert?
Yes. If you were to go back, like on my social media from the time I've started until now, where the In the Car with Pri is, you'll see like In the Car with Pri was actually evolving. Just couldn't figure out like, you know, like what the structure was going to be. But there was always something like social media driven. So there was always something where I was sharing a transaction some way, somehow, whether it was the listing process, the showing process, or even at closing. It was something that you could see. And so the In the Car with Pri just allowed me to take everything that I was thinking, like after I left the client, and just put it all out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's so funny because whenever I'll do an episode immediately after I leave someone, if they follow In the Car with Pri, they'll shoot me a text and say, thank you so much. I knew I wasn't crazy, or thank you for checking me, or thank you for sharing that. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. Sometimes I'll even comment on In the Car with Pri and say, she was talking about me. And I'm like, oh, you really don't have to do that. But, you know, it's working because I actually have, you know, followers that are in different states. So I don't cover different states, but it's giving them enough general information to understand the concept of like a home inspection, which you should and should not, you know, accept, and understanding that lender client interaction, and, you know, a little bit of how that lender should be treating you.
Right.
So it's been working.
Yeah. I see the consistency. When you told me about it, I went back and started looking. I said, shoot, she got her husband or kid up in there. And she said, I'm going to do
Look,
this.
I've sent them all the Tyler Perry and Oprah and HGTV. So
Oh, you did?
yes.
That's
Yes.
what's up. That's what's up. We definitely should talk. We should talk about, you know, talk a little bit more. I had an idea that popped in my head. To be honest with you, this morning, just based off of real estate and what I do, and maybe we can kind of bounce ideas off each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, with the level of success you're having, being an extrovert, sales background, do you do any type of personal development?
For myself or with others?
For yourself.
For myself. So before the pandemic, you would find me sitting in any type of continuing education class. And that's one of the things too, Kevin, getting started, that's huge. Getting into any industry, not just real estate, but definitely real estate. Virtual learning isn't for me. But aside from the pandemic, I love to sit in the classes. That's how I learned so much. So it wasn't about getting the credit for the classes or getting the points you needed for whatever award you were trying to achieve. It was listening to the pitfalls, the things other agents were doing. I'm like, oh my God, I would never do that. Or, oh my God, you actually said that. Or some of them, they would talk about the way they run their business. So I'm like, oh, I like that idea. I'll take one or two of those things away. It's just important to really just be sitting in front of a teacher as much as you can. So since the pandemic has been a struggle, but prior to, like, tons and tons and tons of education.
Okay, cool. Are you currently reading any books right now? Do you read?
Again, that extrovert brain of mine, the way I read books is I will start it, put it down, and maybe 3, 4, 6 months, I'll pick it back up and start it again, put it down. But it's like whenever I need something, whenever my soul is craving something, that's when I'll put the energy into doing it. And I can, not all the time, but I'd say 75% of the time, I can check myself and know when I need something that's going to make me grow. I can usually identify when I'm feeling like I'm like this and I need something that gives me a little bit, to grow. So that's how I read books.
You ever listen to audiobooks?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But I have to see, touch, feel. So the book allows me to make notes. So any of the books that I read, a lot of times you'll see I've already highlighted something, I've made a note, something either I'm doing, I'm not going to say wrong, but something I could change or do better, or something where I'm like, pat myself on the back saying you're already doing really great at that. Continue it.
Gotcha. I actually, my son's 10, oldest son's 10, and he has to read 30 minutes a day. So the books that he was choosing, we was like, dude, that's below your grade level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yesterday, I gave him a book that we found at a yard sale on the weekend that I've read, and it's called Who Moved My Cheese? And he's reading it. And
Good.
I thought that I was trying to figure out like if he would like it because it's an easy read. So a 10-year-old could understand it. I asked him what he read about, and my wife was like, is it? And I was like, yeah, he's getting an understanding. So I went in his room this morning, and he's got it on his desk, and I'm gonna see if he's gonna pick it up today.
Right.
And continue reading it. I'm working on getting better at reading. I can listen to it, and I'm kind of like you. I'll pick up the book and read some and never get back to it.
I have like 4 on my nightstand right now, but it's like I will get through them. Just leave me alone about when I get through them.
Yeah. Yep, it is. Sometimes, I mean, Aaron and I talk about it. Sometimes you read a book and you finish it, but it's not relevant to your situation at the time. And then when you go back and reread it during that specific time that it's set for, then it makes a bigger impact. Yeah, it makes more sense. And I've done that on a couple of books. And I picked up Who Moved My Cheese because I want to read it again. I think I'm I was on a little hamster wheel, right? And now to get out of it, because my goal is to replace myself in my business.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I do well. I'm a networker and relationship builder. I'm a pretty good loan officer, but I think somebody else can do just as good a job as me, but everybody doesn't have the ability to bring in business.
Right.
So establish those relationships. So, Who Moved My Cheese is, I want to kind of work on the mindset piece. And then it's a way to get started. I told my wife I want to read more. Like I want to, that's something I want to do. And I asked her, was it too late? Because she'll read, man, I don't know how many books she reads.
Have the book done in a weekend, basically.
She's a machine. Machine. I don't know how she does it. And, I enjoy it, but it's not something that I do all the time. And I want to read more. And I want to and I guess this is kind of off topic, but I want my sons to see me reading.
Right.
So they can read.
Absolutely.
That's why when we go to open houses, we take them so they can see us looking at houses. When we go to a rehab that we may be doing, I take them so they can see what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just kind of want them to see some things that I didn't, when I was their age. And they don't have to be agents. They don't have to be a lender.
Well, none of my three will ever work in banking or will ever be a realtor. They know enough. They're like, nope, don't want your job, because they've had to sit at meetings. They've had to ride in the car with Pre. They don't want it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I wish somebody would, and it may be you and I, create a show that's real, right? You don't see those. My son was a baby in a hand carriage, and I had to carry him to closing because I didn't have anybody to watch him. My wife was in school at college. My mother was working. I didn't have anybody to watch him, so I brought him in the little baby carriage, sat him down next to me at closing. We closed, we left.
Right.
Daycare was closing. It was lighter outside, and I had my office manager watch my son while I showed houses. When he was able to walk, we went together. I let my client know. Now, I used to list REOs, so sometimes you don't want to take nobody. But
right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But in houses that we could go in, I would bring my son because I didn't have anybody to watch him at the time, or I had to pick him up at a certain time. The house was this far. It didn't make sense going somewhere else. So I just say, hey, listen, I've got my son with me. Is that okay? And they're like, sure, bring him. And then we seen houses. I'm talking about he's like 1.5, 2 years old, and we're doing this together.
Right.
People don't see those things, like they don't, the HGTV part, you see, showed me 3 houses. I'm picking the third one.
Yep.
Pre's meeting with the listing agent at Starbucks. They've agreed on the house. Home inspection came back great. Close, as they say on their closing escrow in 2 weeks.
Done. No shade, HGTV, but call us and we can give you the realty on it.
Yeah, give us the realty.
Yes.
Real reality show on, and I think it would do well.
Yes.
Because people want to see the real,
I was sharing with my lender last night with Aaron, and I get to beat up on him a lot, so he has to listen. But last night, a showing I had, it was like, what is going on? I inherited a new set of clients, and they get in the house and they both go this way. I'm like, wait. That's not what we do. And they were just like this. And I'm like, stop, sit still just for a second. You have to listen to me. And that has never happened. But they were like this. And I'm like, don't move. Just stop. The husband was trying to go down the steps and she was trying to go in the laundry room. I'm like, come back here. This is not what we do. But they had been so consumed with watching what they thought was going to happen. And it was like, no, stop. We're going to start over.
Listen, let me give you some instructions.
Yes. And it was like a quick inherit. So I wasn't able to, and I told them, you're normally sitting with me at an office, or you're normally on the phone with me, and I'm talking to you about the phases that we're going to go through. I said, this happened a little untraditionally. So it was just a quick 30 minutes that kind of drove me crazy.
Yeah. It's, there's never a dull moment in this business. Never a dull moment. So how often do you put out the, in the car with Pre?
At least once a week, but I shoot for twice a week, at least twice a week. Trial and error. I've realized, like, the market and the following that I have, if you do too much of something, they just kind of get turned off, or you don't have as much traction as you need for it to have when you're looking at the algorithm. But twice a week or if it's once a week, it's enough to where either the feedback has been they've been waiting, or it's enough. It's enough for them to keep up with. And so sometimes I have to make sure, like the other day, the one I put up, it was more numbers driven. And I have to recognize that sometimes clients are numbers driven. It's not just all that dialogue. They want concrete evidence of something. So sometimes I have to switch it up. It's not always about a brand new buyer or someone selling a house for the first time or a home inspection. I understand and realize there's people watching that are looking to flip a house, get into investing, or trying to figure out what their next step is going to be in the real estate world.
Gotcha. For sure.
Yep.
Pre, this has been a great conversation.
Likewise.
I've probably consumed 4 of your In the Car with Pre. I think definitely keep doing it. Very informative, gives you a different scope of real estate. But what I loved about it is it's like a mind dump, right? Because what's in here while you're in the situation comes out in the car, and it's done tastefully, right? It's just educating people on things that you don't normally see or hear in a real estate transaction. And for you to tell me that clients are chiming in and they know the situations about them, I'm pretty sure that they think about, wow, I didn't know I did that. Like I didn't know I did that. But I would say definitely continue. It's great information. It's great information that I feel like anybody can listen to. And I learned a lot on the one you did about the numbers, about between September 17th and October something, 31% more houses. It's less competition. Just like that information is key. And I've always thought that for me, the fourth quarter has always been my best quarter.
Oh, it's always a busy time. It's not my best quarter, but I think traditionally people think the end of the year is slow. Who are you showing a house to? But the summer and the end of the year are my busiest times.
Gotcha. For those who want to find In the Car with Pre or to get in contact with you in general, what's the best way for them to reach you on social media?
On social media, it is Home Chick, and that is underscore. Let me get all of that out. So it is Home Chick, CHIC underscore for life, LYFE. And then on Facebook, it's just Japreshia, JAPRESHIA Clark.
Awesome. Japreshia, I appreciate the opportunity and the time, and thank you for allowing me to get into your real estate life. Yeah. And I look forward to speaking to you, and I look forward to us collaborating on that idea for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the Real Estate Proverbs podcast with Kevin Jefferson. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when the latest video drops.